Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We are on number 20, which is materialization for the Auric programming journey. And so materialization has to do with, bringing something from the ethers and physicalizing it. But the thing from the ethers is really, if we boil it down, is light. Even when we have ideas or projects that we're doing, we're still trying to bring it down and physicalize it so it's in motion. And so this idea of materialization is also tied to the intuitive process. When we think of things from the point of view of intellect, we think of it as a thing. We really don't make a lot of effort with it because it's a thing. It's not something to be engaged. It's something that we accumulate, even if it's just an idea of our goal, and then we don't usually act on it, right? So if you look at the idea of, say, procrastination or the inability to achieve a goal, a lot of times that has to do with excessive amounts of intellect. You know, you've accumulated this idea, you've defined this idea, but that inability to take action and bring it into fruition is tied to the intuitive process. So a lot of times we lack the intuitive process to bring things into form. So it could be healing, it could be a goal, it could be a relationship, it could be all kinds of things. It's just about engaging a process, materializing the light, which is the fuel or gasoline for things to begin to manifest and to materialize. And so there's usually three components that we would discuss. First would be, putting something forth, bringing something into form. And then the second part being the inertia or the movement towards the goal. And in this particular area, this is where we can get pulled off track, get distracted either through our own difficulties, our own past and conditioning, but also be susceptible from external influences, other people distracting us and pulling us off track. Okay? When we bring something into the form right off the bat, it is usually something that is beyond the senses. We go deep into the intuitive mind, we come up with this idea or concept, or we start to put something forth, and then we start to generate that motion and movement, which is what we'd call inertia. And then eventually, as that movement keeps going down the road to bringing it into form, there's a form of integration that this light or this idea, this information that's beyond the senses gets integrated into the intellectual mind, right? And in the intellectual mind, we maintain it, it repeats, it comes into form. Right? So this is that journey of bringing something from the ethers or outside the senses, generating the momentum, and then eventually bringing it into form and integrating it into the intellectual mind. Okay. So with that, we use the blend materialization. So you're going to pull out your blend materialization and begin inhaling on the left side of your body, the whole left side, the left side of your face and neck, your left shoulder, ribs, your left hip, all the way down to the left outer leg. Taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. We're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths, but now we're moving to the front side of the body. The face and throat, the chest, the abdomen, the front of the pelvis, down the fronts of the legs to the tops of your feet. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. You're still on the front part of your body. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. The right side of your body, the whole right side of your face and neck, your right shoulder, ribs, your right hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. You're still on the right side of your body. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And then the back side of the body, the whole back side, the back of the head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. And then just pause and be still. Just pause and be still. So that is the standard approach. Again, you can use this on a daily basis. You can integrate this with other processes that you might be doing already, or you could use it for an Auric stack. Now we're going to go to the advanced approach, which is something you might only do once or twice a week, just because it takes a little bit for it to integrate and your body to shift. And, once or twice a week is plenty. But in between, you could also be doing the standard approach. So with that, again, you're starting on the left-hand side of your body, left side of your face, neck, your left shoulder, hips, down the outer leg to the left outer ankle. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. You're still taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Now you're going to the back side of the body, the whole back side, the back of the head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. You're on the back side of the body, from the back of the head to the heels. your right side of your body, right side of your face and neck, your right shoulder, right ribs and hip, down the outer leg to the right outer ankle. And then the front side of your body, your face, throat, chest, abdomen, down the fronts of your pelvis, all the way down to the tops of your feet. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. And then pause and be still. You're just being still. Now you're inhaling, your awareness is on your knees. It can be your whole knees, or it can just be behind your knee, where the crease is, the backside of your knee. So either way, either your whole knee or the back of the knee. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. You're on the knees. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Move to your ankles. Your awareness is on your ankles. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the ankles. And then the soles of your feet. Your awareness is on the soles of your feet. And then just pause and let go. Left side of the body. Your whole left side of your face and neck, your left shoulder and ribs, your left hip, down the outer leg to the left outer ankle. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths. The front side of the body, the whole front side, the face and throat, the chest, the abdomen, down the fronts of the legs to the tops of your feet, the whole front side. Your awareness is on the right side of the body. And then the back side of the body, the whole back side of your head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. Whole back side of your body, the back of the head, all the way down to your heels. So back of your head and neck, your whole back, your hips, down the backs of your legs to your heels. And then just pause and be still. And then just pause and be still. You're just being still. Now, the last little piece, your awareness is on your brain. Nice, long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on your brain. Awareness is still in the brain. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Your awareness is on the spine. Your awareness is on the spine. You're taking nice, long, slow, deep breaths. Your awareness is on the brain and spine, both at the same time. The brain and spine, both at the same time. Now you're moving your awareness to the brain and soles of your feet, both at the same time. As you inhale, you move your awareness up above the ankle. As you exhale, move your awareness down into the earth. Pause and let go. Notice your body, your emotions. Notice your thoughts. Think of a project or an area of healing that you'd like to address and just observe it and just see what you notice. Do you? Okay, let's go ahead and share experiences, ask questions. You can unmute yourself, type in. For this first few minutes, we're just going to do Auric programming, shares, and questions. And then after a few minutes, we'll jump into our normal Q&A. So get ready with your normal Q&A questions, but just for a minute or two, we'll do shares for the Auric programming journey. So go ahead and fire away.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, hi everybody. Um, Interesting experience with this one. So when I started, I just been having a busy day, a busy week, and I was fidgety when we first began. And we did the first, the first part, the standard approach, and I was still kind of fidgety. And then when we started with the standard approach and we went the other direction, it was like suddenly there was like this shift, and I was like, oh, now I'm okay, I'm here, I'm centered, I'm calm. And it was just really like very still. But then when we finished that part, before we started the brain spine thing, suddenly I was like, okay, I have to get up and move a little bit. I have to get up and move, get up and move. So before we did the brain spine thing, I had to get up and like shake a little bit and just move the body. But then we came back and we did the brain spine, and I was able to sort of, settle back down again. But it was very interesting because I usually, when we do the work programming, I have the experience that I calm down and then I stay relaxed thing. But this one was different.
It's kind of interesting, like I don't know. I really like thinking about this process because it is a little bit different, and like I think that's reflective in the things that you're talking about because that first part, that action aspect of bringing something into materialization is like a creative process. We're not just reflecting on it, we're going outside the senses. You're breaking out of the box to bring something in. If repetition was already producing something, you wouldn't go, hey, I need to materialize this because, you know, intellect is already taking care of that. And so, you're going outside the senses, you're going beyond your normal way of thinking, you're going outside the normal repetition. And right there is the creative flow. And then you bring it into the inertia where you're trying to keep that creative flow in motion as you keep moving towards the goal or whatever it is. And then at some point, it gets integrated into the intellect. And then the intellect goes, oh, I get this idea. Let's repeat this. Let's maintain this. Let's make this a thing. Let's keep repeating it until it comes into form. And it does put like a little pep in your step, or like, it makes you like, I'll be doing like even healings on stuff like this. And in the middle of it, I'll go, I gotta go do, and I'll go rearrange my travel bag and put it in little cubes and everything. And then I'm like, okay, now back to what I was doing. Like it gets these like creative juices flowing where it's usually not just about your project. It just, because that creative flow is innovation, problem solving, like learning, especially learning something new. It's bringing something in and putting it in motion. And on some levels it might be a kind of healing, but a lot of times it's like an innovating, creating, problem solving kind of aspect that you're bringing in. And it does kind of stimulate this, like, let's go take care of business. Like, and I find it's almost like fun. Granted, if you're dealing with some horrible thing you got to deal with, it might not be fun, but it's that part of the brain that like overcoming obstacles almost plays like it feels like you're playing rather than "Ugh, obstacle. I gotta deal with this obstacle." Or at least that's my inner voice. Ugh, I gotta deal with this. Oh, it's gonna be so hard and so difficult. It's almost like, okay, how are we gonna do this?
Mm.
You know?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't describe what I was feeling as any kind of agitation. It was just that let's just get up and move
Yeah,
around.
let's just take care
Yeah,
of business.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, very interesting experience. Thank you.
So the other thing that I would say that I notice about this aspect is because I use the term problem solving, but that's like a really like general thing to say. But how like you have like a bunch of things that you need to do. Like, you might like I have the things I got to do today. There's things I got to do this week, and then there's those things that I'd like to do. They need to be done. They're not time sensitive. They're a little bit of a pain in my butt because they're not done. I find the action, I mean, how to say this? The problem solving becomes like how to schedule it and how to put effort into it. A lot of times, in the same amount of time, I get more done because I'm like very organized in my efforts and my thoughts about how to do something. You know how like you might be doing something, you're like, well, I'm already here. I could just finish this other little piece. And then bam, you're like back on track.
Mhm.
Um, I find that whenever I work the materialization process and whenever I work Jupiter, like some aspects of Jupiter, that's always what happens is I get really good at the problem solving becomes like a kind of order of like how I'm going to do things and put out effort. And in the same amount of time, I generate a lot more. I don't know. I generate like more effects, or I finalize things to a much greater degree. Like I get them done, like without really thinking about
Hmm.
it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I really like working the materialization process, to be honest.
Mm.
I mean, all the different pieces, like it's like, what's my favorite oil, the one in my hand. And, there's a lot of different processes, but I'll kind of forget about doing the materialization work. And like the last, I don't know, week or so, I've been doing it. And man, the creative juices just get flowing.
Mm.
They just get flowing.
Mhm. Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You're so welcome. Let you keep me posted on how that goes.
I will. I'm working on some art for a submission that's due August 15th, so I'll let you know how it goes.
Cool. There you go.
Okay. And go ahead, Teresa.
Hey, Teresa.
Hi. I had similar but dissimilar experience. I focused on an area I wanted healing and a lot of negative emotions came out and I'm like, I don't want to materialize this, but the intent was the healing. So I don't know if that was just the release.
A lot of times it's a kind of displacement, because the thing is like even if you think of something very negative, um, you're materializing a light in that situation.
Got it.
And so, whatever that is, that means it's starting to move towards
Okay.
healing, processing, integration,
Mhm.
whatever it is. And so, like if it kind of stirred up emotions, I would say that it's either something being displaced or something being processed so that you can just go, okay, I'm done with this.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just had before this a cranio session where it was starting to come out of the body.
Hmm.
So this just kind of carried it on. And at the end, so thank you for that because sometimes, when that comes up, you're like, similar to what Linda said, I don't want to materialize that.
Right. Sure,
And
sure,
then I'm
sure.
like, wait a minute, just trust the process. And as I got to the end, I could feel my heart just softening with more compassion for self.
Oh, good.
So thank you for the extra validation um, and for the process tonight.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed.
And then we do have a question in chat, and if you would like to go ahead and raise your hand for the regular Q&A at this time, you can do that. Could you go over again what a stack is? I feel like I needed to do this. Sorry, I feel like I need to do this, especially with the last 3 weeks, but I don't really grasp how to do it.
So a stack is when you're dealing with the aura, we're working with the energetic mold or blueprint, right? So in this energetic mold or blueprint is the effects of the elements or the elementals, right? So that's energies that we've attracted. There's energy of thought. There's also the effects of the collective conscious and unconscious that is in this auric like blueprint that our physical body, emotional body, mental body follows, right? Some of it's us, some of it's the environment, some of it is past actions, and some of it is just our blueprint from when we come in an incarnation, right? So if we make a shift in the body, sometimes it might improve, but if the blueprint, which is the aura, if the blueprint has different like information, like say, okay, your knee is going to degenerate, and you go through and you do work on your knee and it feels better, and then it's like, a week goes by and it's degenerating again. It's part of it is in the blueprint, it's in the aura, it eventually physicalizes into the body. So we still want to be able to treat the body, but we want to unwind the things in the aura so that there's a greater potential of healing, shifting, evolving. So if it's something physical, if it's something emotional, if it's something mental, or even something spiritual, right? We want to be able to have the blueprint for it to come in and physicalize in the body, in the emotions, and in the mind. And so the idea of an auric stack is to work maybe different aspects of the aura. It could be about something specific, like a specific health issue or, a specific situation, or it could just be different things going on in your life. Like, okay, I have sleep issues. I have a little bit of hard time getting some things done. So like the materialization process that we just did, and you work the sleep aspect, and then you might address like the nervous system, and then you might address, something like the limbic system or emotional responses, right? And so you would do that first standard approach, but you might use three, four, or even five different aspects of the aura that you're working to either produce a result in a particular area or a kind of result for just you where you're at. You're like, okay, I got this going on. I'm a little stressed. I'm having a hard time sleeping. I got this project that I got going on, and I'm having a hard time communicating it to the people that I work with. So you would use like communication support, For the stress, you would use limbic system. Sleep, you would use the aspect for sleep. Um, and then you would use materialization. And so that could be kind of a little personalized treatment that you do specifically for what is going on in your life at that particular time.
So specifically, how do we do the stack? Holding all oils open in my hand?
No, you would do each one at a time, right? So you would do the standard approach, which is left side, then front side, then right side, and back side. It's how we started the session tonight, right? We did the standard approach, and then we went to the advanced approach. So you would do one of the programs, you do it to completion, left, front, right, back. Then you would grab the next one, and then you'd go left, front, right, back. Then you'd grab the third one, and then you'd go left, front, right, back. Still going, anywhere from like 3 to 15 breathing cycles through each piece. And then you grab the fourth one and you do it like that. And so it can be done at the beginning of the day or the end of the day. But it's something that I would say, I would try to probably do it daily or at least 4 or 5 times a week. Yeah.
Thank you. And then that will conclude this week's Auric programming. And join us next week. We have memory, and I think Robert probably posted exactly what it's called for next week. Yeah, memory.
Memory.
With memory support. That was easy. Right, so that should be good. And then now we'll start our regular Q&A, and go ahead, Teresa, start us off.
Hey, Teresa.
Hello. 2 questions. What is
Yes.
in the lymphatic blend? And then I'll wait on the next question.
Okay. Yeah, give me just a second. I gotta.
Sure.
Okay, so lymphatic blend is helichrysum, birch, ginger, cypress, cedar, sage, rosemary.
Sam, can you hear me? That's weird.
Teresa, I can hear you. Hold on a second.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, the whole thing seems to have frozen.
They'll be back shortly.
Yep.
The Wi-Fi went down.
That we lost power, which means we lost Wi-Fi there for a moment. Okay, so let's revisit that. So the lymphatic blend is helichrysum and birch, and ginger, cypress, cedar, sage, rosemary, thyme, frankincense, juniper, and lovage leaf.
Wow,
And
that's
could you-
amazing.
Great, thanks. And we'll put the video on in just a sec. We're running on like a low Wi-Fi at the moment. So when
Okay. Um, do you want me to wait to ask the second question or proceed?
go ahead. It was muted on default. I don't know.
Okay. So sorry about that. We're having little power outages, which means we're losing Wi-Fi. But so that's the formula for the lymphatic blend, and then it's part of the Auric programming. But also one of the things about the lymphatic blend, it is one of the names of Metatron. It's blended to be one of the names of Metatron. Something I did a very long time ago. So it's fancy in a lot of different ways.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And did you say there was lotus in that? Did I
No,
get? No. Okay.
no. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be amazing though if Lotus like had a lymphatic impact. Oh boy. Give me
Oh,
another reason to use Lotus.
maybe I'll just do the tincture beforehand. And then another question.
Mhm.
What would you recommend for improving vitamin D absorption in terms of oils or tinctures?
Improving just vitamin D.
Like absorbing it.
Hmm. Oil wise. Because are you also having like a calcium issue or it's just low vitamin D in general?
The hypothesis that we have right now is it's magnesium, which is impacting vitamin D. So I'm upping both of those, but not calcium.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be really a herb or a oil that would. Hmm. Let me see here.
Okay. What is that?
Ashwagandha is the only thing that I could come up with for that.
Okay.
Yeah. There's talk that like mushrooms, any sort of
Yep.
mushrooms like maitake, shiitake, things like that.
Mhm.
But I'd probably lean more just to like ashwagandha. In theory, Solomon seal potentially might like a little bit just because of um like what it does to the body. But I don't know that I could
Okay.
say it for a fact that it would improve vitamin D,
Okay.
you know. Like you could see the effects of if vitamin D was in the body, like that would go along with some of the properties of Solomon seal. But,
Okay.
I've never looked at it through that lens. So that's
Okay.
just me talking, you know,
Okay.
talking.
You're talking. I
Yeah.
think we had ashwagandha in one of the kits
Yeah, yeah,
recently.
yeah. I'm sure it's been in a
Okay.
kit at least once, if not twice. And
Hmm.
I even have like a topical ashwagandha that is used in some of the ointments.
Oh, okay.
I would take it internally probably for
Sure.
that. But
Okay.
the tincture, the oil, alcohol-based tincture. But yeah,
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
you're
Appreciate
so
that.
welcome.
Right now it's showing Lolly, then Ralph. I think it was Ralph, then Lolly.
Yes, it was Ralph.
Okay, go ahead, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg, couple questions on some classes here.
Yes.
This weekend with Radiant Mind, we did the aspects of Mercury.
Mhm.
What class will be the aspects of Jupiter, and when is that class going to happen?
So that is the second weekend of August. I haven't named it yet.
Okay.
Um, but it's, you know, I don't know. Maybe you could help me name it. I was probably going to try to come up with a name this week, but it's the weekend of
Okay.
the,
Second weekend of August is close enough. That's what I
yeah,
need to
the
know.
9th and 10th. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, good.
Yeah.
Uh,
How did you like the Radiant Mind?
yeah, the parts that I could get of it, it was great. I'm waiting for the burrow to get down here with my kit. So that's
Oh, yeah. I forget about that. Yeah.
kind of puts a little bit of a damper on the party, but
Yeah.
what I could get was good. Yeah.
Well, I'm shooting to because we do have like other international times to ship, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to get like a week or two ahead of production so that I can do that a little bit sooner. So maybe we can get you the kit out
Okay.
even sooner.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be great.
yeah.
Back in a couple weeks ago, you came up with a a little twist of visualizing the 12 inches above the head to do the inhale, do the
Mhm.
crown, and then exhale through the area of interest.
Right.
Um,
Part
what
of the universal angelic process.
Okay.
Is that
What
what you're
is
talking about?
yes, that's what I'm asking about. What I'm specifically wanting to know about that process of the 12 inches above the head. When is the appropriate time to employ that? Or can we just do that anytime?
I mean, you can do it any time. Like part of what you're doing there is you're training the crown chakra to do more of what it does naturally. Part of the thing with the crown chakra is that it raises the vibration, which takes energy from, our body, our brain, from the top of the head and moves it up,
Will work. Right.
right up
Can you
to
make the
the
argument
point.
that they will work? I can make the argument, and I have
Yeah.
235 years of history.
Oh, what's going on? Yeah, sorry. So it's
Yeah,
raising the vibration, moving it up,
right.
but then when you
It,
bring it back down to the crown, you're taking it down into the body, and the crown chakra also lowers the vibration. So when you have divine energy coming in, part of how that energy is made digestible to the body is that the crown chakra takes it and lowers the vibration and floods the body with soul energy or divine energy.
Right.
So the more that we work on bringing that energy down into the body, actually, the easier it is for it to go up. So, like going down enhances going up. And so when we raise our awareness up, we have, our different experiences and, expansion. And we also take whatever difficulties we might be having, raising the vibration. And as it goes up to the 12th, that point of light above the head, it registers as lesson learned, right? And it's a way to stimulate intuitive intelligence, but then bringing it down, you can flood the body with whatever kind of energy. It's really good to use with angels, with angelic energies. You could do it with just other things, but you're probably not going to get quite the impact of what like the angel work would do. But like say you did it with like deities or you did it in a meditation, something of that nature, it would be good. But like say you're just trying to treat your digestive tract, it would be okay, but there's other things that would work a lot better.
Okay. So my brain's going two ways here. Okay, so number one,
Mhm.
um, so I right now in doing that process, I'm noticing like if I'm focusing on my front throat, as I go up to the 12 inches above the head, my attention or focus comes off the front throat
Right,
while I'm doing the inhalation.
right,
And then of course, it comes back as I'm doing the exhalation.
right.
Okay. Will, and so like, okay, am I losing this losing focus on the area of interest a problem? Or is that
No, it's necessary because like you're kind of you're going to an area in your body where there's some sort of blockage, right? Or
right?
you want something to happen, healing, whatever it might be, right? Even if it's just like I feel heaviness there and I'm trying to cultivate um, awareness versus like intellectual concentration or focus.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you're breaking out of, neurological patterns. So you could even be dealing with a loop or something like that. So you kind of practice that piece where you focus on it, on that area, you observe it, and then you go up. And then that energy you bring down is an energy with consciousness. And so it is what helps break that body out of that repetition and of that loop. So like say I'm doing okay, you're using throat. So say you're doing your throat. You sit, you practice sustained awareness on it for a little bit. You're practicing body awareness. You're starting to have a little bit of expansion. Then you let it go, and then you go to the crown and you go up. And then at the end of the inhalation, you come back to the top of the head. And then as you exhale, you're still on the crown as you begin to exhale. Then you move your awareness to the throat. You're bringing that energy with consciousness and you're filling that area with that energy of consciousness. And that energy of consciousness has more of a spontaneous effect, which means it breaks it out of its repetition or out of its loop, right? So to maintain that awareness on that area wouldn't allow for that energy, that intuitive energy that is with consciousness to come in to such a degree. So it's important to actually let it go and then come back to it, and then let it go and then come back to it.
Okay. All right. Other question that I had right away there was, so in thinking of the angel names for the various planets and things,
Mhm.
it seems to my engineer mind that the moon, moon in general is going to have one angelic name, and
No,
then
it has several.
okay,
Yeah.
that was going to be the point, was
Yeah.
the healing spirit of the moon would have an angelic name, and then the the various aspects, healing aspects of the moon would have separate angelic names.
No, they're not necessarily angelic names, but there's angels associated with each, sometimes with some of the different aspects. Yeah. But they're
Okay.
not necessarily an angelic name.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, say you're working like the, third aspect of the moon or something.
Right.
So you're working a particular aspect of the moon, which has to do with waking up a kind of consciousness within you. And in that, there might be angels associated with that that can help facilitate that to a greater degree. But that is not necessarily an angelic name. That's actually a kind of consciousness that's within you.
Okay. All right. The reason I ask is because my local rock shop, amazingly enough, had a bone mala
Oh, nice.
on the shelf, and I bought one.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at, gee, well, if I had the angel names, I could do the mala with these various um, planets and things.
Hmm.
Am I thinking correctly?
I'm still not quite sure what you're talking about doing. Like,
So what I was thinking of was, you had mentioned using the angelic name and the mala and doing the angelic name 108 times,
hmm
all the beads on the mala,
hmm
and going around to invoke, or to I will say invoke because I don't know the right term,
Sure.
that planetary energy.
I would use it just to invoke the angelic name.
Just in
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
angelic name, or
You
like,
know, you
if
have
I'm
the effects
interested
of
in doing the moon, what's the angelic name for the moon?
there is no angelic name for the moon.
Okay.
And the aspects, there's no angelic names for the aspects.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it's just the holy name for the moon or for the aspect.
Nope, there's no holy name.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's a kind of consciousness within you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just focus on the moon, bring forth a mental image of the moon.
Um, yeah, I'm feel like we're getting like twisted up on something.
Okay. So my intent is to bring that lunar energy into my energetic body, so that that can manifest in the physicalness.
Okay. Okay.
And I was thinking of doing it with the mala and the 108 beads on the mala.
I don't know that that's going to work.
Ah,
Like it
okay.
would be more of working the angelic names, like you
Hmm.
would pick an angel and work
Right.
the angel and you would use the bone mala for that. But as far as
Okay.
the planetary energies, um, with it would be hard to do that with um, just doing a mantra. I mean, like the solar logos, doing the
Hmm.
Gayatri would be okay, but like each
Yeah.
one isn't necessarily going to have an exact thing that you could work.
Okay.
So even if you use the imagery of the symbol for the planet, you're
Hmm.
not really going to be able to chant the symbol. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I would
Okay.
work the angel, like work angels with that.
Hmm.
If you're trying to bring in the energy of the planetary energy, I would use a dorje, point it down, and then reflect on either the symbol or, you know, if you can visualize the planet. Like the moon would be an easy one to visualize, but some of the other ones might not be as easy. So you
Yeah.
might want to use the symbol, but you could do the dorje and do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So that would totally work.
All right. Good. Okay. Well, thanks. Looking forward to
Okay.
this weekend's
Yeah.
class.
Good, good.
And go ahead, Lolly.
Hey, Lolly.
Hey. So let's see, a few things. Yeah, the materialization was really lovely. So thank you. Again, it's so weird how like the standard approach was fine, but then the second one, like the advanced, that was completely out. So and and
Yeah.
sometimes when we do materialization, different processes, I feel like as much as I even try and focus on something I want to bring in, sometimes I get too mental about it or too intellectual about it, and I just give up, and I'm like, okay, whatever
You're
comes
talking
up,
about
just
the materialization process?
yeah. So it can be working this
So,
or other thing.
I think let me clarify. Like, so you know, different people's minds work different ways, and you know that's the thing that is interesting about this kind of materialization, is you can be looking at like a positive outcome, and then it's materializing the light into that. But even if you look at some like really negative thing within yourself, you could say that thing is negative because it lacks light, right? So even if you think like, oh, these horrible tendencies within me, and you sit and you think about them, and you think about all the nasty parts that you know either in the situation or within yourself, and you do the materialization breath, you're still bringing light to that, which then starts to move that out of the darkness. So if you're in some situation or need some area of healing, and you're like, God, I feel horrible about myself or this tendency or anything, I don't know how to think about something positive. It really doesn't matter, because it is about materializing light. And so when you bring light, excuse me, to that situation, it continues the evolution of whatever it is and starts to move it to something more positive rather than just letting it linger in the negative. When you do it with intellectual things, which we don't do, with the processes that I teach, if you were to repetitively think about something negative or have something really like a strong feeling about something negative, that would be a kind of materialization that you would bring into form. And that is the pitfall of doing things involving materialization with intellect, is that if you're not clear, if you're thinking negative things, you're also bringing that into form. But go to the intuitive side where you're working with light. It doesn't matter if you're super positive or super negative about a situation, because the light is going to be the correcting factor that helps move that into a way that is evolutionary and improves whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and you mentioned it before. I think a part of me just kind of, yeah, maybe kind of forgot about that. But
Mhm.
yeah, and also because, so thank you, which makes sense, and that's why I connected the things that we do with you, then to other things. What also happens, I guess I'll connect it to something else as well. It's like, even when we work on the weekend and we work on, which is a totally different thing, but when we work on like releasing things or like pick a situation, and I'm like, each time I have to pick like one thing, I get all like, wait, but this thing and that thing and all these things
So,
are
okay. So again, let me help, because that's, you're looking at it from a very intellectual point of view. The only reason I have you think about something on the weekend is so that you have some experience and the ability to measure. It doesn't matter what you think about, because
and
it's hitting it all, because you're waking up a kind of consciousness. If you are doing it from the intellectual point of view, because again, intellect thinks about things as a thing, like I have to address this, I have to address that. But it's not a thing, it's a process, it's a way of thinking, it's a kind of consciousness. So the reason to do that over the weekend, like in the radiant mind, is just so you have some sort of validation, and you have some way of like measuring and having an experience that can kind of make a little bit of sense to the mind and to the intellect. But what you choose isn't the only thing you're working on. You're working
yes,
on you're working on how you think,
and
not each situation.
Right. And that's actually what came up because as I was like kind of going through a few situations in my head, I'm like, oh, wait. All of a sudden, I realized there's a pattern with all of them. And
Mhm.
I'm actually
Sure,
working one thing that kind of presented itself in different ways.
sure.
So it was actually really interesting because before my mind wasn't breaking it down that same way.
Right.
So yeah, so that was good. So thank you.
Good, good.
Then the other thing I wanted to check is, we do the Astara process and you do all these amazing meditations and everything. And recently started, you've been working more with the angels. So what I'm wondering about, when I do the practice with Astara with you, is it okay to add the oils as well, especially when we do the angels and it's very specific, or is it too much?
No, it's not too much. A lot of times when we're doing something like angels or something like that, there's a lot of different ways to do it. So when we were doing it with oils, I do it with oils. When we go to Astara, I don't really talk about the oils because, Astara
Yeah.
is based on the meditations and the
Mhm.
practices that way. So I address it that way. But even when we do like mystical tool practices, we would use the tools to do it in just a maybe working the same thing, but in a different way. So there's a lot of different ways depending on what approach you're doing, but you can work these things. They support each other. They overlap each other.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I'm doing my oil work, I'm also using a tool and I'm doing a little bit of meditation and then I take a little nap and I
Mhm.
and when I get back up and I do it again. And how like Ralph was talking about like using the mala to do mantra with the angels. I'll inhale the angel and then I'll do a little bit of like mala work with saying the name over and over again. And so you know, there's all kinds of versions of things to do. And that's, part of the thing with, breaking out of intellect and moving into intuition is it's almost like this little exploration, like Ralph's exploring this idea of like working the angels and planetary energies in other ways. And so, you go through and you start experimenting and sometimes things are really like you knock it out of the park and sometimes it's like, yeah, it's nice, but the other one was a little better, a little stronger, but maybe if I combine them, they'll do a little something. And so there's the thing with like wisdom practices and tantric practices is that it's not based on a lot of repetition. It is based on like exploration and experimenting and a kind of spontaneity. And so not always doing it exactly the same way is kind of a positive thing. I would say the thing for doing things with repetition is good for the intellect to eventually possibly get it, but the downside is that if there's no intuition involved, that the intellect very quickly begins to impersonate what it thinks it should be doing. And so the idea of not really giving the intellect the ability to start impersonating comes from the experimentation and bouncing around and trying different things and because that's always engaging more of the intuitive mind, and it also helps give you a greater level of understanding of what it is that you're doing. And so um yeah.
So basically, I can add it every now and then and
Yeah,
kind of
sure,
play with that
totally.
and do different
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
and
mean,
then
like just like earlier today, I was inhaling an oil, and I broke out my Dorje, I did a little Dorje, and then I think I inhaled the oil again, and then I sat and I did a little bit of mantra, and Samantha had to wake me up so I could do the Zoom tonight because I mean, I was so awake and I was getting so much done. I started doing that, and next thing I know, you know.
Yeah.
I was out like, you know, hard. And so,
Yeah. Okay. Mix and match. Okay,
yeah,
cool. Thank you.
yeah.
And then, okay, so a little bit of like maybe heavier question. So, you know, we talk about memory and oils that are good for memory and all of
Mhm.
that stuff. And we have another class coming up. Is it, I can't
Mhm.
even, is it this weekend? No? Yes, the one with the,
No,
I'm
it's
blanking out all of a
the
sudden.
weekend after.
Yes, okay, thank you. So yeah, and about the vagal tone and memory and everything.
Mhm.
But what I'm wondering about is how, okay, let me kind of, okay, so you know, sometimes people that have PTSD or have like
Uh-huh.
traumatic experiences and all of that, and then they have issues with remembering things that happened around that time, things related to that, things in that time period, or whatever it may be. Then we're looking at something else that's not really memory. Then we're looking at releasing the trauma
Yeah,
first,
that's a
and then,
trauma loop. Yeah, those are trauma loops. Yeah.
okay, so
That's not
then,
really a memory issue. It's that the things get triggered and then they go through and they replay that. They replay that situation. So that's a loop in the nervous system. It's not necessarily that the memory keeps going back to it and going, oh, remember that trauma? That really sucked.
mhm,
It's more of some stimuli from the environment triggered the memory and the body memory, the mental memory, whatever it might be, and you have a re-experiencing of it, but it's not necessarily a memory issue.
right. So then, but then, okay, so sometimes, you know, you have a certain, I don't know, somebody went to war, saw horrible things, then, you know,
Mhm.
they have PTSD, so you can pinpoint and be like, okay, that's the issue, that's what you're dealing with. And but then what do you do if you have somebody, and I see that, like, I worked with people that have, you know, traumatic events, abuse, whatever it may be, and then you can go back to the situation and release, and you know what you're releasing. What do you do with somebody that you don't know what you're releasing? Like for myself, for example, I have,
Oh, okay. So right there, when we say releasing, there's a little bit of disentangling, but by no way, shape, or form is that resolved. It's not resolved until the loop in the body in the nervous system is resolved. So even if you go back to some past event and you do some sort of healing, I mean that's why the oils work so good, is it shifts the nervous system, you know,
mm-hmm,
pretty consistently, right? So the idea of like how we do the body awareness, or you sit and you look at that situation from the past and you observe it, part of what you're trying to do is part of that loop is tied to both homeostasis and it's also tied to intellect. So when you sit and you concentrate on something, you focus on something, eventually that shifts into awareness. And in that awareness, something spontaneous can happen, and there's a shift in the nervous system, and there'll be a shift in the mind because you're breaking out of intellect. And so to release those things that are like PTSD or old traumatic events, releasing just helps get you closer to the shift. If
that wasn't a
if
good choice of
Yeah,
words.
so if the shift doesn't happen, that situation is not resolved.
Right.
Releasing something is kind of like helping to disentangle something.
Yeah.
And sometimes the word release might be really saying shift.
Mhm.
But like if we're looking at mechanically what we're talking about, it's like if you had a big stack of papers that you were trying to get from the car to the house, like releasing would be like just taking off a little piece of it so that you
Mhm.
can like not spill it getting it to the house. Like it makes
Yeah.
it easier for the shift from the car to the house, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean because you took that little stack off that it's like, oh, it's done, it's in the house.
Right.
Does that
And
make sense?
yeah, yeah, makes sense. And
Mhm.
that's, yeah, yeah. I guess what I'm wondering about is what do you do when you don't know what you're working on. Like you have blocks in memory, you
That's
can't,
still that's still intellect.
because you're still
You're
working on a,
trying to stimulate the intuitive process. The intuitive process will clean things up. Intellect wants to manage it. It thinks of it as a thing and then, wants to micromanage it, right? So it's like how we were talking about the weekend. Um, you had like different things like, oh, but there's this, that there's that. Um, it didn't matter what you focused on. You just need, it's not about what you think about, it's about how. How are you thinking? Are you thinking in an intuitive way? Are you thinking in an intellectual way? If you're thinking in an intellectual way, it's going to be micromanaging. You're not really going to let go of anything. You're just rearranging and maintaining it. So as soon as you turn on the intuition, it doesn't matter how you got there. Intuition just starts cleaning it all up.
so then you're working on the trauma loops and you're working that
Trauma
regardless.
loops, ways you see yourself, kinds of consciousness, it's doing way more than what the intellect is able to perceive. Both
Okay,
in like how to do it and what it's addressing.
yeah, so it's not really focusing on those
Mhm.
specific things, but it's working the entire thing.
Right.
That's
I
okay,
would
yeah,
make the argument focusing on specific things
makes
usually
it
makes it
worse.
worse.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, because that's
That's been
something
my
that
my long time personal experience because I used to be like we just need to get razor focused on this thing and uh but like I, I I'd love to say that like oh uh I learned how to like, talking about like healing things in myself. I came to this wise place where like, I was able to address this and move through it. I just got tired. I tried the laser focus. I tried to like really go at it and it just would make it worse. It would make me wrestle with it. It would bring things up and make me all agitated and everything. And at some point, I just got tired and I just gave up. Like it wasn't like wisdom; it was just fatigue. And in that is when things started to heal.
Mhm.
And so, the thing with intellect is it looks outside of us and tries to bend the environment to fit what it thinks it needs or the way things should be, right? Intuition does it from the inside out. It helps to move and shift you internally, and then you're just adjusting and adapting how you're interacting with the outer world. So anytime that you're really focused on trying to like get rid of something, release something, what you're doing is you're creating a power struggle with that in the
Yeah.
situation. And it's just this weird dynamic of a power struggle for a while. And, at some point, you spend time and energy trying to get it to be a particular way, or I got to try a little harder, or, whatever it is. I got to get other people to help me do this better. And it's still external and it's not going to shift anything internal. So even if you get it to be or look a particular way, it still hasn't shifted something inside you. A very good example of this is think about like say you have like a conflict at work, with like say a coworker. We'll say coworker XYZ. So how does coworker, you and coworker XYZ get into this argument? You go back and forth, da 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 da, and you're talking about like some theory of something in your industry, right? So XYZ disagrees with you. So what do? They go tell a bunch of other people to try to get other people on their side to say, like, look, I'm right. They didn't learn and grow internally. They just tried to manipulate the environment so that they get their way. I mean, that is the struggle with healing is people think intellectually, people think healing is when they get their way.
Mhm.
that's why people have a hard time healing sometimes. So, and it's not like, oh, my cut didn't heal, but like, we're talking about like inner healing is it's about trying to get their way in the external situation, you know, like the Uncle Bob in my family. Trust me, I tried the intellectual approach until like I just beat my head on the wall until my head was bloody. Like I tried everything. I tried connecting with the person. I tried asking them their advice. I tried, just to like suck up to them a little bit. Like I tried everything. Nothing worked. Just nothing worked. Then when I started doing the intuitive stuff, even if it didn't work, I didn't care. Like,
Yeah.
just because I shifted inside. I couldn't change them. I couldn't get them to be nicer or be more engaging or be more polite or not rude. But I shifted, and then when they're rude, I'm just like, oh
Yeah.
well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
whenever healing starts, we usually start from a very intellectual point of view. That's not unique to a few individuals. We all do it. Like everybody, we all do it, right? But at some point you go, I got to let go of this. I have to be able to go inside, and I have to be able to shift inside. When people are excessively intellectual, they just keep trying to bend and manipulate the environment, something external for them to eventually get it to the way they think that it should be. And all that turns into is um, impersonating whatever it is they
Mhm.
try to do, whatever it is they try to do. And so, you know, spiritual aspects are things that we can cultivate. Mental illness is something you can cultivate just as easy. Like there is those mechanisms where they lack intuition that you see people like cultivate, and they just won't let go of it. They're just beating themselves up. That's all they're doing. They're just ugh, ugh, ugh. And so anytime you introduce intuition, awareness, the ability to observe, you're letting go of that repetition. I mean, it's kind of, I said it over the weekend. If you think of the different explanations of hell, it's the same thing happening over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Mhm.
It's just intellect. Like it's you have some intellectual idea about something, and after you leave the body, you got to burn off that repetition at some point. That's really what hell is. And so you know, the beautiful thing about intuition is it doesn't have to be like I have to figure this out and direct it to here. It's like the more you become intuitive, things will rise up. You'll process things in your sleep. You'll process things in the day. You'll start making different choices. You'll start breaking out of patterns. You'll change the dynamic between you and the person or the situation. Your creative processes will start flowing, and you start evolving out of these different situations. And if you think about like what we were talking about in the weekend, is like, there's these old places where we get stuck in traumas, or maybe not even traumas, but we just get stuck. There's like a kind of gravity that holds us there. We shift the consciousness within inside of us, and we just kind of go, yeah, I'm done doing this, and you just kind of walk away. Like you just will walk away.
Mhm.
The issue of why those traumas still feel like they're still happening is because we didn't get up and walk away from them. We might have physically gotten up and walked away, but internally, we're still there. We're still in repetition,
Mhm.
right?
That came up really strong for me on the weekend, like not walking away from things when yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is like I make this joke, but it's really the truth. It's the way that I kind of always thought about it is you could say that intuition is a really good janitor. Like it is a really good janitor. When you say you're in the office and the janitor comes in, you don't think like, oh, you gotta clean that counter and oh, my keyboard's a mess and I hope they empty out the garbage can. Janitor just comes in and cleans everything up. And I would say really good intuition really cleans toilets well. Like it really cleans the toilet. All that crap in our lives that are just backed
Yeah,
up.
just yes, yeah.
The source is, I mean, if you think about like that's most spiritual practices is just trying to get to, intuition to be able to be stimulated in a particular area. You might have intuition, but then you get to that trauma spot and then you get kind of stuck in intellect or an instinctive response. And really, that ability to sit with it and observe it, that ability to observe means that intellect is like the setting sun, it's going away, and you're starting to get like that inner vision.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a needed reminder, and everything makes sense. I guess
Yeah.
and yeah, walking away from things came up very
Yeah.
strongly,
Yeah,
and
because sometimes that is just, might be an old traumatic event. And, like I go back to a couple of Uncle Bob's and my family. There was nothing that you could ever say. There's nothing you could have ever done. There's nothing. They are how they are, and they're very adamant in who they are. So, do I keep doing this dance that I always walk away from feeling horrible? Or do I just say, I'm not doing this dance with you anymore?
Mhm,
If you want to do this dance, then you got to behave yourself. And if you can't behave yourself, I'm not playing.
mhm,
So sometimes it is walking away from a situation, like, okay, I have this inner pain or trauma from 30 years ago that I'm getting up and walking away from. But it can even be a physical experience where you go, okay, every time I interact with this person, I walk away feeling miserable. Like I'm
mhm.
I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there was one person in my family, like, you know, like when you would show up, you could just tell he had this like scowl on his face, and he was just waiting for you to come up so he could take his digs, and I would just ignore him. I would, there'd be 20, 30 people there, and then finally you'd go, "You're gonna come over and say hi?" And I go, "You gonna behave? You gotta be nice." And he goes, "I'm nice." And I was like, mm, and I'd start teasing him, and it always broke that dynamic between him and me. He was still super rude to everybody else,
Mhm.
but between him and me, he never knew what to do with me. Like he never knew what I was going to say because I didn't have a preconceived idea and I didn't do that same dance over and over again.
Mhm.
So I brought a spontaneous action to him because I didn't keep doing the same thing over and over again. And so he broke out of how he behaved towards me because he didn't know how to behave towards me.
And yeah, and I guess for me, just I got a little bit stuck with like with really the incident or whatever it may be that I can't even bring up sometimes. So it just gives me so much anxiety to think of something that happened or whatever when I really realistically don't need to focus on those things as much.
So this is this is what I do. Like because that can be a little bit of an issue. Like you go through and you work like work through things, and there might be things that are there, but you can't necessarily recall them, right? So the way that I handle that, over the years, oh, I had a list. Oh my God, I had a list. And, I would say doing these practices and everything, when I go back and I look at that list, I like, God, nothing really bothers me from that list. But again, there's something still stuck in the intellect some way, some way, somewhere, you know what I mean? So then, going back to how we begin to engage the healing process, we always, no matter how evolved somebody is, they always start intellectual. It's just how we're wired, right? So then we turn it into this power struggle, or I'm gonna wrestle with this and I'm gonna beat it and make it go away or release it or beat it into submission or whatever it is, the story we have, right? And so then you turn and you start doing this inner shifting and you go, God, when I think about the Uncle Bob's, I really don't have that issue. When I think about, the past when there's themes of like abandonment or something, I think about them, I don't have emotions. My mind is quiet. So then you look at the external, you watch people, you watch the news. What kind of like, oh, that kind of bothers me a little bit, or oh, my mind's a little obsessive or a little repetitive about that. So you look to the external, and then you can even, because it doesn't have to be about you, right? So you can look in the news and go, oh, that's a little bit upsetting. And then you work that and you're you're addressing something deeper in you. But if you can't feel it internally, look at things externally and then go, oh, how does that make me feel? I'm going to sit with that. I'm going to observe that. I'm going to expand that. I'm going to utilize that, because once intuition is kicked in, it just keeps going deeper and deeper, right? So if you can't feel it internally, then look at it
Yeah.
externally. For me, I use the
Yeah.
news, like,
Mhm.
because like all these years doing all these practices and doing so many healings, doing those kinds of shifts. I mean, I still have my little areas that I got to work, but compared to the old days, ugh, that Greg doesn't come around much anymore. Thank God. Like, you know what I mean? Because he was a
Mhm.
hot mess. But I would say when I look at the news, there are things that are obviously a little bit upsetting. And it's not things that I necessarily experience in my life directly, but still like that pattern is there. You know what I mean? And so I use the news as like a kind of practice. You could say that like, okay, I bless that area and everything, but part of it is I watch the things that are upsetting, and then I practice the same thing, feel it in my body, wait for the expansion, see if it happens in my mind. You kind of go through those same steps, and it takes the healing process and it goes much deeper. So, it's that idea of, you know, when somebody's really bothering you or gets under your skin, they're a mirror. Like,
Mhm.
that saying,
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Mhm.
they're just mirroring something back to you.
Mhm.
You know, you can have those kinds of people in your life, but even if you don't have somebody who's bugging you or some situation that's bugging you, just look at the news or look at situations going on in the world or look at
Mhm.
things going on in the family. And even though it might not be directly impacting you, you still can use those for deeper levels of healing.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, and I mean, something has been working. Like I see the changes within myself. Like
Hmm.
even the last few days, all of a sudden I learned new things that I don't even know where they like how I learned it so fast, or understanding things, or I even look
Yeah,
different.
that's intuition.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I even
you're
look
you're nailing it.
differently than I did, like a month ago or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah. So something is moving in the right direction.
Good
So
for you.
yes. Thank you so, so much.
Good for you.
And then go ahead, Ralph, then Robert.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Greg, thinking of this new bone mala, I wanted to
Uh-huh.
consecrate it.
Uh,
And I remember a consecration ritual from back when I was doing Celtic work
sure,
of doing the four directions.
sure.
That would work fine.
Yeah. I mean, like mala like that, working the four directions. I love that. You could do a little bit of an invocation, but
Hmm.
also just doing the mala work
Yeah.
is probably the thing that's going to juice it up the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah. I love that you're so into your bone mala.
Yeah.
I
That's
love bone malas, by the way. Like, oh,
okay.
yeah.
Good.
You're
Good
gonna have to
deal.
let me know how your experience is.
Okay. I'll do that.
And go ahead, Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Hey, Greg. It's been interesting to hear the questions and answers and how they're a very different question tonight. They're not about
Yeah, they are
conditions
very,
or
very
something,
different. Yeah,
and I'm
I would
about to
agree.
break that pattern. Uh, but
So
I'm
you're
going to
being
start.
spontaneous and you're being into it. Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to break it from a different perspective, though.
Okay.
I have a new client
Okay.
who I haven't seen yet. She is dealing with migraines.
Okay.
And so just for the heck of it, I went into the Auric programming shop and searched for migraines, and 22 of the oils have migraine as a condition that they work
Right.
on. That would be
Mm.
a heck of a stack.
Yeah.
So it
That would be
applies
a
to me,
part-time job stack.
right? 5 hours a
Right.
day is what I
Right.
figured. What I figured that means is that there's multiple kinds of migraines and different ways to treat them.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
so I guess how would I start approaching someone who says, I have migraines?
So a lot of times, because a migraine is usually the spine is real super congested, and the Ming Men is usually like overactivates and shoots excess energy up towards the head. And part of what the Ming Men does is it bounces out the two sides of the brain, right? So it has a balancing effect. And if you look at the idea of migraines are always on one side of the head. So there is like some form of a blockage, could be at the back throat, could be at the base of the skull, could be in between the two hemispheres of the brain. Um, so the issue can be also external influences. They're in a stressful work environment. They have a partner who is super stressed out. They're in a situation that either they're angry or somebody's very angry at them. And so with migraines, I would probably start off with working the nervous system. I would work fascia just because it allows for energy to release out of the body. Because a lot of times, if you see somebody who has like really bad migraines, they'll do this a lot. Like, not every person, but a lot of times they'll do this. And sometimes they're not even aware of it. And it's not a fist like this. They'll kind of curl their thumb in there and they'll clench their hands real bad. And they might not be doing it consciously, and sometimes they do it while they sleep. And so part of what we're wanting to do is to help them be able to shift out of that kind of stress state. Because if you think of like what happens when the Mingmen is overactivated, it's a very strong stress response. It could be an agitation, it could be all kinds of things, but bottom line, it's like a stress response. So nervous system, limbic system, um, uh,
Sure.
for this person, I would say I would also throw lymphatic system in there, and I would throw in assemblage point. Yeah. Yeah. The thing with assemblage point, we have talked about it different ways, but part of it is it helps calm down instinctive responses and shifts the effects of how overstimulated or agitated instinctive responses affect the emotions and eventually the mind. And, a lot of times with migraines, they get triggered or they get overstimulated. And so, the other one that I would say as an honorable mention could be the sustained awareness. Like just getting the person to be able to shift into awareness is big because it will clean things up and will help to establish a kind of order. Like if you look at the track record of people that tend to get migraines. Like I used to get really bad migraines when I was young, when I was young, like teens and 20s. And uh very, very in my head back in those days. Very, very in my head. And they tend to be like very like anything that they do, it's like coming from the intellectual mind. So practicing that body awareness, shifting into awareness will actually help reduce the triggering or the stimulation and that loop because migraines become a loop. Just like there's a trauma loop and a pain loop, like, different health issues can have like a kind of loop where it just takes a little bit of stimuli and they go into this like migraine loop. And so the more that you can stimulate sustained awareness, shifting from that intellectual piece into the more of the intuitive mind. And a lot of times you can do it with observation. And I know I've shared a bunch of times like how I was trying everything. I was using medications, I was using herbs, I was using everything. And finally one day I had this just excruciating migraine. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna put my awareness on it and I'm just gonna try to relax. And I think I played some ambient music and I used the ambient music to help like give me like another focal point that just wasn't the pounding pain in my head. And I kept relaxing into it. And at first, it hurt worse, like for about 2 minutes. Like it was like, oh, this was a bad idea. And then it started to dissipate and it started to dissipate and started to dissipate. And that was the last time I had a migraine. And that first little peak where it gets a little bit worse is again whenever we try to address something, our first like effort is what have I done in the past? Like, what do I know? Like, you basically are stimulating that intellectual process. And in doing so, it does that, try to micromanage and try to make it go away or just make it stop or whatever. And in that, there's a little peak of the pain, right? But then if you keep observing, it begins to shift and you shift into the intuitive mind, and the intuitive mind breaks out of that neurological loop. And so, you know, I would say that, there's the Auric programs that we just said, but you could grab any 4 or 5 and you'd probably start producing a result because even in working the Auric program, you're shifting them out of the intellectual part and you're shifting them into the more intuitive part. And so I would just say, you listen to them and, maybe a couple things resonate, but grab 4 or 5 of them, have them start doing a stack, and you'll start producing a result.
So going back to our program, even doing the manifestation oil would be a good oil to use.
Yeah, And then like the
And
aloes where
quantum.
it's just all programs, that could be a thing, even like the angelic work and the zodiac work where not necessarily specifically for migraines, but whenever I inhale some of those, I have a hard time keeping my eyes open because I shift so much into the intuitive mind. And any of that would work. Yeah. Yeah.
And then are there questions I should ask her to
Well,
find?
anytime you're dealing with something that's like chronic like that, for somebody who's suffered with that for a while, you know, um, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. Like I'm getting the migraine, I'm not. And so I would keep defining it so that their intellect can see that there's some sort of progress. So you look at, okay, duration, how long is it lasting? Is it lasting as long? Is it starting to not last as long? And then intensity, is it as intense as it used to be? Is it less intense? And then how much are you able to pull out of it when it happens? Where like, maybe somebody who had a migraine, they would lose the day, but then it gets to the point where like, I had a bad couple of hours, but I was able to pull off the rest of the day. And then like how often, like how big of a space in between, the one time you had the migraine and then the next. Yeah.
Okay. I may be back to talk more about
Okay.
this
Yeah.
with some more
Yeah, I'd love to talk it
specifics.
out with you. Like,
This,
however that looks. Yeah.
yeah, and I like that there's all these oils possible because they're all helping to bring light in. And I think
Right.
that's what she really needs is what we learned today with manifestation.
Right. And, deepening the breath, reducing body tension, like that one from the weekend class, the one that's body tension. You could have them just inhale that. Like, you just kind of keep taking it down. A lot of times people with TMJ have a lot of tension in their jaws, even though they might not be aware of it. A lot of tension in the jaws. And so, the more you keep taking out like body tension and things, that's always quite helpful.
Okay. Very good. Thank you much.
Yeah.
I do have a couple questions in chat. It's 13 after.
Yeah, maybe can we just we're having to move over to the Astara prayer petition thing, and so maybe we can answer them email or
Yeah,
something.
please, guys.
Yeah, so sorry. Yeah. Yeah, sorry for the internet little blips there, but thanks for hanging out.